Day 1, 600 hours. This is the personal journal of Peter, name redacted. I am of my own will and incapacity of my position as redacted at the Avaris Corporation, leading an expedition into a newfound parallel reality that will henceforth be known as the Backrooms. Let it be known that I am of sane mind, and as of this writing, I have passed all needed mental health checks in order to be present on this expedition. What I know so far is the Backrooms, despite our most recent discovery, it's always been here. It seems that this pocket of reality was a sort of precursor or a plan to our own world. Travel between the Backrooms and our world is facilitated through a digitization procedure, where we in our own reality are essentially broken down while passing through a specially charged gateway, data transmitted through to this parallel version of our Earth. We will be undergoing this procedure at 800 hours, approximately 2 hours from now. I can't say that I'm a fan of the name, but we've used the popular internet theory of the Backrooms as a placeholder for this area at the moment. It's not quite the same beige, endless hallways that YouTube and 4chan have made it out to be though. For all intents and purposes, the Backrooms have been described as similar to our own world, but trapped in time. It's also noted that things in the Backrooms are more dated, I suppose is the right way to put it. Think of it like a video game render, where modern life is the most up-to-date graphical ability that we have, seeing it in perfect clarity. The Backrooms itself looks like something more akin to a game from the late 90s. Everything has a lower polygon count, like it was rendered in older software. To be quite honest, it has a very uncanny effect, though everything is still functional. Textures on surfaces look as if they're pasted on, yet they retain the same sensation and feeling as in our own world. The few subjects that have been sent through previously have come back with little information, though they're not quite the specialists that are going to be sent over this time. In our team of 5, I will function as a lead researcher. Also joining us are Avaris employees, Julie, Remington, Fitz, and Murray. Last names redacted for privacy. Our aim is to explore the Backrooms and get a good look at what it may function as and report back. Our home base will have a redigitizing setup where we will report back and return home after 48 hours inside the Backrooms. I'll be keeping an updated log of what is discovered. Day 1, 900 hours. Yeah, so we made it to the Backrooms. To my surprise, it seems to mirror where you are at the time of entering, geographically at least. We entered through the Avaris Research Facility in Manhattan, emerging in the same basement level. However, upon further inspection, we have realized that the Backrooms is not an exact recreation of our current reality. Whereas the current wall color of the Avaris Research Building interior is a dark blue with LED lighting installed in the ceilings, this version in the Backrooms has beige walls with fluorescence. At least it's the approximation of fluorescence. These panels in the ceiling are in fact only an image of the ceiling material, like a texture pasted over a game asset. It has no defining crease or crevice holding it in, but it's simply painted onto the surface, yet it is still providing light. One of the more curious discoveries though involves shadows. It seems that our shadows are they aren't often visible. It's odd, but as long as you're within a certain radius of the light source, you're fully illuminated. Even facial features don't cast shadows at different angles. It makes me uncomfortable. We're setting up base camp in the research lab. It's much more bare bones in here compared to the one in our reality. Only a couple of desks and the computers are just boxes, crude and fashioned in the style of a PC from the 90s. Very bulky. I'm going to see if I can get any of them to work as we go. The next few hours will simply be base camp tests and making sure that the environment here isn't lethal. Right now, we're wearing containment suits like they do in the hazard rooms back home, and I would rather get out of them as soon as possible. They have a habit of riding up in the crotch. Very uncomfortable. Day 1, 1400 hours. This is an interesting development. We've begun to branch out from base camp now that it's finally set up, exploring the rest of the building finally. The elevators work, though they contain far less floor options than the ones back home. As it is, we only have 3 buttons. 4B, the basement that the research lab is in. Ground, or rooftop. Transport between floors is also odd, shorter than the time it takes back home without stops. Even stranger, it takes the same amount of time to reach the roof as it does to get to the ground floor from the basement, 11 seconds. I can't say I'm sure why, but I look forward to exploring what it could be due to. More curious, although the elevator doesn't seem to be working, we've been able to use the stairs to navigate floors. When we go to the elevator on other floors though, it still only gives these same options. We're able to travel to the other floors but not return to the ones that we departed from. It's all well. It reminds me of the logic in a game. It's strange and, as of yet, defies all reason known before. Other floors feel almost alien in their construct. They're bare for the most part with no equipment or furniture, only an occasional column in the room. More so, they have even more simple textures in the other areas. We've had to bring portable light sources with us as they're all dark with no working source of light, but the walls, ceiling, and floor are nothing but blank white. Not so much even a color as it is just the absolute absence of anything. The lights that we bring in seem to get absorbed by the surroundings, and despite the bright white colors, the rooms are incredibly dim and hard to see. It's eerie, really. You almost feel that you could go through the white walls and fall into a boundless void. At times when observing them, I swear that I could catch noises coming from the other side, just barely loud enough to hear. They were faint and far away, but I swear they sounded like voices. We've yet to encounter anyone living in our exploration of the building, though whether they would be the same type of living as we are is a totally unknown concept as of yet. We could very well be dealing with creatures totally unlike us, or exact copies. Though judging from how this place looks, I question whether they would look more like us or like their own world. Currently, I'm back at camp in order to get food and recharge. We have yet to actually step out into the lobby or the rooftop, and we'll be making that venture next. 1900 hours. I'll be damned. The more I step into this world, the more I question what it really is. I've found things that seem so familiar, yet so highly strange that I don't recognize them. It's like hearing a minute of a song from your childhood and getting that brief smell of nostalgia. I feel like I should be at home here, comfortable in a known environment, yet at all times there's this electrical tingle to the air, like a constant current running through every single part of my body. If we're being honest, I felt uneasy since stepping through the door of the research lab. A knot in my stomach, a deep-seated nausea, it haunts me, yet there's something in my mind that's lulling me to a sense of ease, telling me that it's actually all okay. We journeyed up to the lobby first, leaving right after my previous update. Stepping out of the lobby was interesting. The layout is different from back home, with the welcome desk on the east wall instead of the north. The same beige color scheme is down here, and most odd at the time, the old Avaris logo. The one painted in our lobby is the newest one that started being used in 2020. The one painted in the Backrooms is the logo created in 1992. And if I have my years right, it was retired back in 2003. The shining capital A was painted a bright gold, rays of light around it as it connected to the rest of the letters to spell the company name. It brought back a wave of nostalgia, reminding me of the commercials that I saw as a child when watching cartoons on Saturday mornings, though at the time I had little idea of what went on here. Dark green carpet blanketed the entire room, with the floor-to-ceiling windows the only thing that looked remotely the same. A soft, yellow light was coming through them, though we're unable to see outside or even determine what time of day it is. When trying to look through, the windows are essentially just walls. Nothing is visible through them, just the texture painted over to make them look as though they're reflecting light. I'll say that it activates a certain claustrophobia, thinking that you're going to look through a window and finding that you're simply trapped in a box. I could step out the front door and be in the middle of an ocean for all we know. My fears were, well, I won't say that they were quelled by going up to the roof. If anything, I think I found something that doesn't quite make sense in my mind. Since arriving, I felt that familiar tinge of nostalgia. I grew up in the city in the 90s and spent a lot of time wandering in my younger days. The NYC skyline back then was different, for obvious reasons. And well, getting to the rooftop proved to be all that I needed to figure out just how radically different the Backrooms was from our own world. The sky outside was a pale gray, not a whole lot different from ours back home. The clouds, though, they weren't round, fluffy, or moving at all. Every cloud was separate, a little blocky in the sky, angled in odd shapes. Beyond that, the sky was a visible gradient, not blending into each other but in separate color layers leading all the way to the horizon, which was totally flat. The water around the island was as still as it's ever looked, with not a single wave visible. More eerie though, down below, 40 stories, there was nothing. It was the quietest that I'd ever heard the city. No traffic noise, no planes coming and going from the airport, not even the wind. Just empty quiet, not a thing moving. Overlooking the city was even more concerning. From up here, I had a pretty good view of most of the city. We weren't the tallest building on the island, but it was still clear in every direction. Looking around, I spotted them immediately. The Twin Towers. And Julie started crying when she had laid eyes on them. Can't say that I blame her considering that her father was working there on that day. Died when the first plane hit. To see that building standing again, well, I can't imagine that it's an easy thing to go through. And we returned to the lab after that, deciding to call it a night so everybody could get some rest. To say the day had been overwhelming is an understatement. Everybody's camping out in the main research lab, setting up sleeping bags and portable folding cots. It's not ideal, but it's comfortable enough. I've been messing with the computers in the room as well. It's an odd feeling. The buttons on it are non-existent, yet react when you touch them like modern touchscreens in a way. The keyboard looks more like a sticker on the desktop, but it responds to the same button motions as a typical QWERTY layout. Unfortunately, I'm being kept out of the system as it requires a username and password. The layout reminds me of an old DOS system though, with a very bare-bones interface. I'll keep seeing if I can eventually get through it later, but I don't think that it'll be happening tonight. Day 2, 900 hours. I'm writing that it's 600 hours, but truth be told, I don't feel so sure. The day and night cycles here just don't seem right. I went up to the rooftop again at 7:25, fully expecting the sky to be bright, but it was a deep and dark blue with a moon that looked as if it was a cheap photo hung in the sky. The air was still just as quiet, with no stirs or bustles from anywhere nearby. I stayed up there to drink my coffee, witnessing the sun come up about 5 minutes later, right on the dot at 7:30. At the time it happened though, it wasn't any kind of gradual sunrise, but more like a switch being flipped. The settings changed and suddenly, pop, a bright blue sky and blazing yellow sun hanging at high noon. I stayed up there to finish my coffee before coming back down here almost on the dot at 800 hours. When I turned to leave, however, making my way back to the elevators, the switch flipped again. Suddenly it was completely dark once more. The same plastered moon hanging in the sky and no sign of the sun anywhere. Upon witnessing this phenomena, I went downstairs to grab Julie and Fitz. We got back up within 10 minutes, and for a while there, I believe they genuinely thought that I had gone mad. Can't blame them in this situation, all things considered. We were dealing with an alien world masquerading as our own after all. My theory relied on the day-night shifting every 30 minutes, and I was right. As soon as 8:30 rolled around, daylight was upon us again, basking the low-res city below in artificial sunlight. It was odd. Usually the sun feels warm, even on the coldest days, but there was no change. Just a steady, regular temperature no matter where we went, whether it was on the roof, ground floor, or otherwise. Everything was the same, uniform, constant everywhere. We're now planning the final excursion outside the lobby. I'll give updates when I have a chance to sit down and write them. Day 2, 1500 hours. I don't think that we're alone in here. That's not the least of our problems, though. We made our first excursion outside of the Avaris building, through the lobby 4 hours ago. We prepped everything that we thought we could need, but well, we didn't expect anything that happened. We were kind of surprised the radio worked in here, considering how weird everything else was being. We figured it would be best to have a 3-person team go out while the other 2 set up in the lobby as base camp, relaying any information that we might need. Contact with our reality was non-existent while we were here, so they would basically just be guiding us and recording information that we sent back to them. Fitz, Julie, and I were the excursion team, leaving Remington and Murray to hold down the fort. We set out at first light, right after the changeover had happened. The streets were bright, every single direction bathed in bright artificial sunlight from up above. We were almost hopeful setting out, believing that we were going to find something that could change the world back home. We walked for about 20 minutes, heading in what would be east back home. Not that any compasses worked here, though. We tried using basic navigation equipment, but everything just spun around. Not a hint of true north or anything. We just continued down the same street, though, taking note of what we saw along the way. Everything was, well, empty. There wasn't anybody out there. No wind, no hint of cars or people. Not even a bodega cat on the corner. I saw buildings that I remembered from my youth as we went through, signs telling of a time long gone. From everything I can tell, the Backrooms is basically trapped in a low-res version of the 90s. If humanity made it to the 90s, though, where the heck is everyone now? All of this had to come from somewhere. It had to have been built, but there was no sign of anyone. Even more, the streets didn't have any hints of clutter or garbage anywhere. It's like all the people just cleaned up and headed out, never to return. About 12 blocks down, everything went to hell. We heard a person's voice, faintly at first, but it steadily grew louder. We finally got to the next intersection and looked towards where south would be when we saw them. A person was shouting, just general screams of, "Hello? Is anybody there?" They sounded human just like the rest of us, and their tone was obviously terrified. Had they somehow stumbled into the Backrooms by accident? There had been stories of people ending up here just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was rare, but there were witness accounts of people disappearing into thin air, and some managed to come back. Supposedly, they would find portals that could get them through. Occasionally, some talk about a savior figure that throws them out of the Backrooms and back into our world, and others report just taking a hard hit and suddenly popping right back into reality. There's no telling how many people have gotten here over the years. We were about to make contact with this person when another voice interrupted them. Before Julie could make a signal to them that we were here, another figure appeared out of an alleyway near them just a few blocks down. The voice was different. It sounded like it was talking through a microphone hooked up to a broken speaker, phasing in and out while breaking up repeatedly. It sounded like it was shouting, "Hello," back at the person. They must have been relieved to hear someone remotely human, so they responded immediately. I could hear them saying, "Oh, thank God," while running right to the figure. That turned into screams of pain quickly when they had touched it. Julie and I watched through binoculars, getting an up-close view. The person was a man, probably in his 30s if I had to guess. Tall, probably about a foot taller than the figure that he ran up to. That thing it was supposed to be human, I know that. It was naked, but it had no defining features to determine what it was. Just the same flesh-colored texture up and down the whole body. It had no hair and the face looked as if it was painted directly onto where the head was. Just a crude drawing of a person's features plastered and stretched over a roundish ball. It wasn't even completely round, but slightly blocky and in what approximated to a half-block, half-oval. The man realized too late when he reached a hand out, touching the figure directly on the shoulder. Anyone that gets twisted and stretched like he did should have an instant death. All at once it was like he got sucked into a singularity, a body folding in on itself from every direction as he screamed the entire time. When it finally shrunk down far enough though, bands of flesh, sinew and blood kept bursting off of it, stretching a few feet into the air before snapping right back towards the center like a rubber band ball. I can still hear his shrieks, begging for help, begging for the thing to stop as it just repeated the same glitchy, "Hello," in front of his mangled body. The ball of flesh floated there for another moment, the man still screaming in terror despite being compacted down into next to nothing by an outside force, before the thing touched it again, this time seemingly absorbing it into its own body. I gagged, trying not to throw up before finally setting the binoculars down. Fitz was staring dumbfounded, but Julie, the poor girl, has been through the ringer for mental distress since we got here. She let out a scream loud and clear, and I saw the figure turn towards us. It knew that we were here. Julie clasped a hand over her mouth immediately, desperately trying to take back what she had done, but it was too late. The figure began moving towards us, shouting even louder in that mechanical voice. It was glitching even harder now, and the form soon started to mimic the voice as it got closer. The figure began bending, limbs stretching and bending in every direction as it walked closer. I say walked, but it was too smooth. More like it was gliding over the ground towards us, legs moving as if it was walking, but the feet never actually touched the ground. It was getting closer though, the guttural, glitching "hello" speeding up and slowing down in rapid succession, like it was tripping over itself trying to talk. We ran, heading back the way that we came, back towards the Avaris building blocks away. Night came as we began running, causing the streets to go completely dark. Only the occasional lamp provided light, but even then it didn't reach very far, only covering a very small area and leading to pitch black in every other direction. We ran through uncaring for the darkness that engulfed us, only trying to get away from the incessant grating of the figure coming from behind us. I think we lost it about 4 blocks out from base camp, warning them over the radios of what had happened. We kept moving, not daring to let up on our pace, just in case that thing caught back up with us. We had to keep going. We couldn't get caught like that other poor soul did. We busted straight through the door of base camp and shut it behind us. Fitz and I tried moving one of the small desks in the lobby to block off the doors, but found that it wouldn't budge. After a minute, we gave up on that though, instead deciding to just take the elevator back down to the research lab, praying that we would be safe in there. I think that I need some sleep. I still can't process what I've seen in the past few hours and nothing makes sense. God, the portal out of here can't be opened back up fast enough. Day 2, 2000 hours. Something's very wrong here. We were all getting ready to go to sleep about an hour ago, settling into our camp bags after a light meal, when suddenly a blaring noise started coming from an indeterminate point. It seemed like it was coming from every wall all at once, or beyond the walls. Just a jumble of voices, traffic noises, everything you would expect to hear in the city on an average day, turned up to the max volume and then left on all at the same time. We looked all around the floor that we're on, but haven't found any kind of source for the noise. No sign of anything hooked up to an intercom. Heck, no intercoms or speakers anywhere to be found either. It's just there. Like it's blaring out of the walls, the ceiling, and the floor at an insane volume. Practically deafening, and we didn't bring any kind of ear protection with us. Occasionally, amidst the voices and sounds of cars, I swear that I can hear pain screams, just like the poor guy that we saw get folded up a few hours ago. Screams of people begging to be freed from torture, let out of whatever hell they're being held in. Searching for the source has been useless. We're just going to wait out our final hours until they open the portal back up in the morning. If I hold my pillow over my ears, it's a little more bearable. Day 3, 0400 hours. There's somebody else in the building. I don't know yet if they're the source of all the noise or not, but they're watching us from the shadows. I caught a brief glimpse of them while going to the bathroom earlier. They're not human though. They have the head of a bird, a raven I think, but the rest of them is human-like. They know who we are though, and they spoke to me. It was 30 minutes ago. I got up to use the restroom down the hallway. Despite the urinal just looking like a cheap picture on the wall, it works. I don't know exactly how, but it flushes into everything. When I was coming back to the main research lab though, I saw him. He was standing at the end of the hallway just watching me. It stopped me in my tracks for a minute. I thought that I was losing my mind. He just watched me. No sense of fear at seeing someone else here or anything. Like he knew who we were. "You shouldn't be here," was all that he said. And then he raised his hand and the lights went out suddenly. Pitch black. Never seen anything so dark in my entire life. Just like that, he was gone. Nowhere to be found as the lights came back on. I woke up the others when I got back to the room, telling them about what had happened. And while I don't know if they actually believed me, they looked uneasy. The noises were still blaring, this time with an undercurrent of what sounded like soft elevator music, tying together this hellscape. God, I need to get out of here. Just a few more hours. Day 3, 0900 hours. The portal back hasn't been opened. It's supposed to be here, right where the entrance to the lab is. We're supposed to just walk right through back into our own world, but there's nothing. We don't even have a way of contacting the outside world, so we have no idea if it's an equipment malfunction, an issue at headquarters, we don't know. For now, we're just going to wait it out and hope for the best. Maybe they're on a delay or having trouble with calibration. We keep just staring at the doorway, hoping to see the purple glow that means we can finally go home. But so far, there's nothing. Day 3, 1200 hours. Fitz and Remington are dead. After a couple of hours with nothing happening, we decided to try and search the other floors. Maybe something happened in the main research lab and everything had to be moved after all. It was a legitimate possibility. We were trying to find any scrap of hope that we could to get the heck out of here, though we knew it was probably minuscule. So we set out, going to the other floors with their strange white walls and empty rooms. It was eerie and so dark. We even went up above ground to check out some of the floors up there on the off chance that things could have been moved that far. There was nothing though, just empty room after empty room. The noise blaring at us loud and each one like a speaker was positioned right by our ears. It was starting to wear me down, just the constant uproar with no way to get away from it. I think I'm starting to go crazy. Floor 4 was where we stopped for a break after scouring through everything. It was a lot like the others, a mostly empty space with white walls and dark ceilings. No lights to be found but our own. There was one single chair though, just sitting abandoned in the middle of the room. We called time, deciding to gather our energy. Radioing back into base camp downstairs let us know that the portal still wasn't open, so there wasn't going to be anything to go back to. Not yet at least. Fitz decided that if we were going to take a break that he was going to sit down. He was in the middle of radioing Murray downstairs as he sat, but suddenly went quiet mid-sentence. I turned to see that he wasn't there anymore. Not in the chair at least. Instead, he was plastered to the ceiling, practically fused with it. Whatever parts of him weren't already smashed to bits by the force that he was flung up there with going through the non-textured material above us. Blood dripped down, puddling below him. As it fell though, it pooled around the chair. As we looked closer, we realized that every drop of blood that fell onto the chair got pinged off, flung back to the ceiling with the terminal velocity of a rocket, blasting through Fitz's remains that were still fusing into the ceiling above. I've seen a lot of messed up things throughout my life, footage of lab accidents, a lot of bad stuff that happens in this line of work to those who are less than careful. But this was something else. There was nothing recognizable about him, and no telling how in the world it could have happened. I started gagging, getting ready to heave my guts out all over the floor. Remington was definitely the more curious one of us though, immediately jumping up to try and figure out the danger so that we didn't repeat it. Unfortunately, he figured it out the hard way. I think that he was trying to grab Fitz's tag from the remains of his body. He was reaching up to the ceiling and I could see it hanging down from the puddle of goo and bone that was stuck up there, still dripping down. He lost his balance though, falling forward and putting a hand out to steady himself. That hand brushed the back of the chair though, and then he was just gone. It was like an invisible train hit him going hundreds of miles an hour, throwing his body across the room faster than I could even blink. Blood splashed all over the place as the force of moving that fast tore him to pieces, scattered bone and sinew across the room. He hit one of the white voided walls and fell straight through, blood floating into the nothingness beyond, remained spinning like a rag doll the entire time. After a moment, he was just a speck in the distance. I ran out of there, heading back to the research lab in what I thought would be relative safety. When I burst through the door covered in blood, Julie and Murray were already up and ready to go. After seeing the Birdman last night, I think they believed that I had finally snapped and killed the others. It took a minute to actually get my bearings and tell them exactly what had happened. Heck, I still don't think they believed me until I told them that I could show them exactly what happened to the others. They followed me back up and into that empty room, the blood now forming a perfect circle as it pooled with the chair directly in the middle. Fitz was still on the ceiling, though it seemed like he had been absorbed into it more than when I had left. The mass of bone and blood was shrinking, phasing through the blank texture above. I went to the next floor up. I don't know why, but I had this hope that maybe he would be up there, reformed and back to normal by some magic of the Backrooms. No luck. Despite phasing through the ceiling just inches below my feet, there was no sign that any human had ever been there. He was a part of the building now. We returned to base, numb. I tried wiping myself down using some of our bottled water to get whatever blood and viscera I could off my skin. Even when it wasn't there anymore though, I could still feel it. We're just going to wait. No more exploring, no more trying to find our own way out. Now we just sit and wait for rescue. Day 3, 1800 hours. Still no signs of rescue. With Fitz and Remington gone, we have a few more supplies to last the rest of us a little longer. Hopefully it's enough. The noise stopped briefly around 20 minutes ago before starting up after just 2 or 3 minutes of silence. This time though, it's different. Instead of the sounds of a city bustling, it's just a constant loud drone like a plane engine taking off only a few feet away. I've tried making earplugs out of fabric, but it just doesn't work. I can feel the noise in my bones, shaking me to my core. Poor Murray's just sitting in a corner with his hands over his ears at this point, eyes shut tight, begging for it to stop. Not that I can hear him over it. Julie, I think Julie might already be close to breaking. Everything we've been through was enough to get her right to the edge, but rescue not coming for over 10 hours now is the breaking point for the poor woman. She's just sitting on her sleeping bag staring forward with a vacant look. For her sake, I hope we make it out of here soon. Day 4, 0200 hours. We're starting to run low on batteries and power supplies. Soon the last of them will die, leaving us with nothing if the lights go out. I hope they don't. Day 4, 1000 hours. Somehow I managed to fall asleep last night. Not sure how considering how deafening the noise is, but I managed. I woke up an hour ago to find a note left and Julie gone, Murray still collapsed in the corner. Poor guy looked like a shell of his former self. I don't know if it was just because of the noise or the increasing likelihood that we were all going to die here. Can't say that I blame him. Julie's note worried me, just a message saying, "Gone to see Dad." And that's it, no other explanation. I can't just let her wander out there on her own. What if she comes across one of those things like we saw before? I'm going to get her. Murray will stay here and well. I would hope that he'll keep an eye on things and send help if rescue opens the portal. But I don't know how much use he'll be even if they do come for us. And wish me luck. I'll be leaving my logbook here for them to find in case. In case I'm not here when someone arrives. I braced myself, stepping out of the lab and into the elevator all the way up to the lobby. There's no sign that anybody's been through here, not even Julie. Good God, if I can find her, if I can get out of here, then there's no way I'm coming back. I'll cash out all my benefits and leave Avaris. Heck, I'll demand that they pay me to leave, or else I'll break this all wide open to the rest of the world. The street is empty as ever, other than the sound of a jet engine that feels like it's boring into my skull at this point. No time to wait though. Her note said that she was going to see her dad, so I have a feeling that she's heading for the towers. God, walking all this way is going to be a pain. Too bad there's no abandoned cars or anything in here. Not that I would dare use them at this point after seeing what a chair did to my colleagues. But it's nice to dream, right? No matter what, I just have to keep moving. At least my destination was easy to see, so I had little chance of getting lost. I didn't yell for her, knowing that it was probably impossible to hear over the sound going on everywhere. That was going to be a problem for me too though, since there's no way that I'll be able to hear one of those things if they start sneaking up on me. The most terrifying thing about being out here exposed is the cycle of day and night. One moment it's bright and I can see the entire city around me. The next it's nearly pitch black, with barely any light coming from the lamps lighting the street. It's like all the illumination from them is contained in a single sphere, maybe a 6-foot radius, and outside that there's nothing. No gradient light, not even a speck of visibility. Just darkness in the purest form. I walked for a few cycles of day and night, crossing streets that I was familiar with back home, but seemed like a foreign land here and now. Familiar signage from present day was gone, replaced by faint memories of a time long past, when things were more simple and I didn't have worries like I do now. Honestly, if it weren't for all the terrors that I've encountered, this didn't seem like such a bad place to be. No worrying about others, the constant chase for money to stay comfortable and alive. It could be paradise here. Though I don't think Avaris would ever let it stay that way if they had any say in it. No, as soon as they figured out a safe way to travel between, they would simply sell it off for tourists to come visit. I can see it now, and get a taste of a simpler time, with that awful neon splash that the 90s were known for. They were going to sell nostalgia for a bottom line, even if it meant those that were visiting might come across a gruesome death. I keep moving. I peeked around every corner and every intersection, staying vigilant for any of those things that might show up. Nothing though. Finally, a couple blocks from the tower, I was so close. Up ahead of me, I saw her. The sun had just come out again and she was standing at the base of the North Tower, just looking up towards the building reaching high into the digital sky. "Julie!" I shouted, hoping to get her attention. The sounds had changed again. Now instead of a loud plane engine, we were getting deafening music. Something that sounded like it would play in a mall elevator. Heck, it sounded like it was coming out of a busted elevator speaker even. Tinny and staticky with the worst balancing of any sound mix that I had ever heard. Julie must have heard me through it though, because she finally turned to look as I ran up. "I can't do it," she said. I didn't know what she meant by that, but as I got closer, she ran into the building, leaving me on the street. The music swelled now, buzzing and popping in my ears as I followed her in. The lobby hit me with another rush of familiarity that almost stopped me in my tracks. Tan walls, flags not hanging from them above but painted on to look as if they were hanging up on poles, and the stairs leading to the upper floor were so welcoming, yet so unlike what I remembered when I was a kid. The nostalgia washed over me for a moment, the music growing louder as it almost told me to stay here, in familiar bliss where none of my problems mattered. I swear there was something under the static tone, telling me to just stay still and waste away here. That life outside of the backrooms was nothing to worry about anymore. But then the elevator dinged, bringing me back to reality, and I saw Julie ducking through the doors. "Stop!" I shouted, trying to catch up with her, but she was gone. I hit the button, bringing another elevator down and stepping in. The only options, ground floor and observation deck, appeared on the button pad inside. With no other choice, I followed her up, praying that I made it in time. The rooftop here was much like the one back at the Avaris building, totally devoid of anything that you would expect from being this high up in the air. No wind, no cold air, just the still silent world other than for that music playing. Julie was already standing at the observation railing, looking like she was ready to jump over and head to the edge of the building at any moment, and jump all the way back down. "He jumped," she said as I caught up to stand beside her, tears in her eyes and voice shaking. "I know a lot of people don't know what happened to the family they lost that day, but I saw him on TV. He was one of the jumpers. I never really got to say goodbye." "Hey, I know, was all that I could manage to say. How do you even try to comfort somebody in this situation? I just put a hand on her shoulder, trying to offer any solidarity that I could. We stood there for a few minutes, staring out at the New York skyline. Not that there was much to see. The detail of the city was non-existent, just blank textures pasted onto giant blocks for buildings. The horizon was nothing, only a flat blue, indistinguishable between sky and sea. "What do you think happened here?" she asked now, taking me by surprise. "Honestly, no clue so far. You have any ideas?" I answered. Nothing about this place made any sense to me, and the more I learned, the more I realized that I don't know anything about it. I saw some banners in one of the buildings I passed mentioning New Year's and the turn of the century, she said, muttering now. If I had to guess, something wiped everyone out. I guess that must have made those things we saw too, I sighed. Come on, we should get back to the lab in case they open the portal. Hello? A voice from behind us back by the elevators. We both turned, unsure of what to expect. Maybe rescue. God, please be rescue. Hello, hello! There were more voices, immediately making me uneasy and dashing any hopes that I had that rescue had found us. Oh crap, Julie let out a slight gasp. Behind us, those things were starting to pop out of the closed elevator doors, one by one moving towards us slowly. Their painted-on faces stretched over unnaturally shaped heads with wide smiles, staring forward blankly as they steadily approached, closing in on us. More just kept coming out of the elevator, one after another with no end in sight. The cacophony of hellos became overwhelming, almost deafening over the already loud music playing from nowhere. Julie and I stepped back as far as we could, hitting the railing on the side of the building and starting to climb over. There was a little space in between the skywalk and the edge, giving us a little room to breathe. But they were still filling up the rooftop faster than we could think of a way out. There's nowhere to run. She started to sob as they moved forward, reaching long, glitching arms towards us stiffly. Oh my God, we're going to die here. We kept backing up as they moved forward. The stream from the elevator still hadn't stopped, and there seemed to be less and less room on the rooftop as they began crowding together. And two of them touched finally as they began to run out of room, only feet from us, and the sound was like nothing that I've ever heard before. It reminded me of when a dial-up modem would get stuck trying to connect. Just a shrill shriek with the underlying sound like a motor grinding against metal. For a moment it seemed that the background music stopped, but then we were suddenly hit by a burst as the two glitching forms began to merge, digital pixels sliding and corrupting around each other, forming into some new creature. Whatever emerged from the corrupted union, we weren't able to see it. Already backed up to the edge, the blast sent us careening off balance, tipping right over and falling down over the side of the tallest building in the city. I could feel my stomach leap into my throat as gravity takes hold, sending us plummeting down the side. Smooth, textureless windows passed by as we plummeted down, the ground still hundreds of feet away but approaching faster and faster every second. I could barely catch my breath from the air rushing past us, and even as I grabbed at Julie to hold her close, embracing in our final moments, her sobs were muffled by the extreme speed that we were traveling at. This was it, the end. Looking towards the approaching ground, I noticed the street below wasn't empty. 3 figures were standing down below looking up at us as we rapidly came to meet them. From the speed that we were going, I couldn't make out their faces, but they didn't look like the things up above. Could help if finally arrived from base camp. God, what a joke if they finally came to get us while we were falling to our deaths. One of them raised a hand towards us as we approached, now only feet from the ground. I couldn't see if he was holding anything, but he swiped his hand through the air like cutting through something invisible. My stomach leapt from my mouth with nausea as I was suddenly stopped, now sitting on solid ground in one piece, not splattered all over the place like I expected to be. Looking up, I could still hear the incessant hellos and the grinding of a blended dial-up modem as the things began falling over the edge of the roof above. Are we alive? I heard Julie mutter, unsure of what to think. Looking around, I could see the figure standing nearby. The one who raised their arm at us was tall, wearing street clothes like I would see out in the real world. Where their head should be, though, there was a mask that looked like a fox. No, I think it's a jackal. Another person near him spoke. This one dressed mostly the same but wearing a mask that resembled a sloth with a dopey look. "I should probably get them out of here," he said, turning to the last of their trio. This one I got a clear look at, wearing all black with something slung over his shoulder, a bird mask covering his face. Oh my god, he was the same one that I saw in the basement the other night. My mind started racing, wondering if they were residents of this world, survivors of whatever had happened here. "Do you mind opening a door?" "Yeah, can you hold the glitches off, Ty?" The sloth answered, turning to the Raven now. "Hey, I told you not to use real names in front of others." Raven grunted, looking up at the glitches falling towards us from the top of the tower. He raised a hand, a small pulse of light flying from his palm and hitting the closest glitch, causing it to evaporate into multicolored pixels. Before they could even hit the ground, he fired off 4 more from seemingly nowhere, vaporizing the ones right behind it. Without even hesitating, he raised his hand at us next. "And besides, they work for Avaris. We shouldn't let them leave." "Okay, Mr. Murder, you know the rules," Jackal mentioned, pushing his arm down before turning to us. "Sorry about him. He's an edgy anime character sometimes. You two the only ones here?" Our coworker's back at the research lab," I stammered out. "He's still waiting on rescue." "Ah, heck. Okay. G, you're with me. Ty, make sure we don't get followed, please," Jackal said, shaking his head under the mask. "You two lead the way, I guess." We started walking back, Jackal and Sloth keeping pace with us as we went quickly, more of the glitches falling from the rooftop. Raven stayed a few dozen feet behind us, taking care of any that made it to the ground in one piece. The sound as they hit the ground was something else, like a million screams ringing out at once before being ripped through space by an unseen force and then slingshotted back. It got loud and then quiet and then loud again as they pixelated and disappeared. "So you're both with Avaris?" Jackal asked as we finally reached the building after strained silence the entire trip. The Raven was no longer visible behind us, but the constant cries of "hello" followed by squeals was still loud, managing to obscure the music playing from all around us. I was helping Julie walk, her legs almost not working from the amount of stress that she was under. We kept going though, covering a surprising amount of ground relatively fast. "What do they know about this place so far?" We're pretty stumped, honestly," I said. Jackal nodded to Sloth, motioning him to go in as he raised a hand for us to wait out here. He didn't respond to me for a few minutes, only checking his watch and tapping a foot as Sloth ran into the building. After a few minutes, he was back, guiding Murray with a firm hand on his wrist. Sloth led him to us, but I don't think there was anything behind Murray's eyes to recognize who we were. The short time being left here in the Backrooms seemingly broke his brain. "Well, it seems your time in the demo has come to an end. Try not to find your way back," Jackal said. "Demo?" I barely got the word out before Sloth waved his hand at the front door of the Avaris building, causing a purple square of light to take the place of the huge sliding glass. Before I could ask any more questions, Jackal pushed all 3 of us through. A cool breeze hit my face as sunlight and noise of the bustling city washed in. And getting my bearings, I saw that we were back home in the modern Avaris building, surrounded by normal people going about their everyday lives like there wasn't anything different out there. I tried making my way to the elevator to get down to the research lab, but realized that I didn't have my badge with me to get down there. Instead, I sat Murray and Julie down by the reception desk, staggering over to get Maria, the day receptionist, and have her call the lead researcher down. I think she must have been surprised to see me for sure. No doubt I looked rough, but when I asked for Pietro, our boss, by name, her face became even more shocked. "You didn't hear?" she asked me in a hushed tone. "Somebody broke into the main lab a couple of days ago. They murdered Pietro and a couple of the other scientists, then just disappeared into the darkness. It was early in the morning and all that the camera captured was some strange guy wearing a bird mask before they died. My head was racing. Despite my better judgment, I let out a chuckle, collapsing to the ground in front of reception as people continued to pass right by. They have no idea of what exists just beyond the border of our reality. No idea that we're just the latest update to the demo. I don't think I'll ever go back, but I think my time at Avaris is over anyway.